user for some time. I actually got started on Pinterest probably like many other Pinterest users. Planning my wedding, went on to plan our honeymoon on Pinterest, and planned a couple other trips on Pinterest, started using it to learn how to fix my bike, and then actually, most recently, was using Pinterest to find some marmalade recipes. But what I want to talk to you about today, if I can figure out how to go forward here, can we go to the next slide, is how to grow your business on Pinterest. The reason I wanted to talk about this is actually, this time last year, I was running my own small business, and candidly, I actually really struggled to drive traffic to my business using Pinterest. I would read these blog posts or like these news articles about how amazing Pinterest was, and about some brand that was getting 60% of their site traffic from Pinterest, or blogs that have been built on Pinterest, relying on Pinterest. And yet when I tried to do it, I just I wasn't understanding it and I wasn't approaching it right. And a lot of that was because even though I was an avid Pinterest user, I wasn't thinking about how Pinterest is different from other social networks. I was trying to look at it through the lens of a social network. And so what I wanted to talk about is start with who uses Pinterest, because everything else about how to be successful on Pinterest actually falls out of understanding that. And talk a little bit about, once you create a piece of content and put it into Pinterest, like now that I'm on the inside, I'll tell you a little bit about how it actually gets discovered, where it actually goes and how those systems work. Give you some best practices, give you a better sense of, these are tactical things. Just, you do these, it's gonna help you, you're gonna be more successful on Pinterest. We'll talk a little bit about video specifically, and then we'll leave some time for discussion. So there's always been a fair amount of misunderstanding, I think, about Pinterest's place in the world. We often get lumped in with the social networks, but if you're looking for celebrity gossip or to discuss politics with a friend, Pinterest is not going to be the right place for you to do that. There are a lot of other places that already serve that use case pretty well. Pinterest has a different purpose, and what we see is it's more about connecting with yourself. We talk about Pinterest as a place to discover and do what you love. It's a place where people come to discover, spend time thinking about their hobbies. And when we talk to Pinners, we see this breakdown in two different ways. The first is people who are pretty action-oriented. They'll come to Pinterest with something in mind that they want to achieve. And so this is often like planning the wedding, right? Or redecorating your kitchen. They'll come to Pinterest, and they'll be looking for specific ideas. They'll save them to a board. They have a goal that they're trying to get out of it at the end. And then the other mode is a more passive mode, and I find this really interesting, where people will come to Pinterest as a place to escape the judgment and the noise that they see in all around them. And it's a place where generally the things that people are looking at on Pinterest are things that they have really positive associations with. And they'll scroll through those and be thinking about, they're in a mindset of exploring, creating, finding things related to their personal passions. And so this is really important to keep in mind as a creator, because you're not reaching people when they're in the mode of a social network. They're not coming to Pinterest to connect with other people, and so your content has to be geared kind of towards that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And so this is actually this was the state of mind that I was in recently when I discovered this marmalade recipe. I had come to Pinterest, it was the end of a long day, I was scrolling through Pinterest. I grew up with 2 British parents. I ate a lot of marmalade growing up. I developed some kind of strong opinions about what's good marmalade and what's bad marmalade. If you also like really bitter marmalade, come talk to me. What was interesting is I never would have gone to a social network and posted, hey, I'm interested in making marmalade. Can somebody help me find a good recipe? I just wouldn't have thought to do that. But coming across this, I thought, oh, that would be something, that's something that I could get into. And then started looking into it and discovering that actually there are all sorts of different types of marmalade, made with different fruits and all sorts of, there's a whole world of marmalade that I discovered. And so we have all of these people coming to Pinterest to take these actions offline. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting about this is that what people are doing when they're planning their wedding or looking at their kitchen, redecorating their kitchen, thinking about their home or their fashion choices, is that they're curating their own personal sense of taste. And this, I think, is kind of unique and cool because historically, if you wanted to figure out your own personal taste, you did this by looking at the people around you. You would say, oh, I like what like Bobby wears. I like, like Susie's kitchen. I like, whatever Jill does. And then you would take that action. But Pinterest is a place where you can do that free from the judgment and the noise and all of the craziness that you're seeing around you, and from all of those the pressures that come with that. And so that's the mindset that people are in when they're using Pinterest. There are also a lot of people doing this every month. There are about 200 million people doing it each month. That's up by about 40% since last year. It's about half of millennials, 70% of US moms, and a third of US dads. Some people often think of Pinterest as a predominantly female network, and there's some truth to that, but what's interesting is actually males are the fastest growing demographic on Pinterest. So it's not surprising then that a large majority of people actually say that they are getting offline and doing something new thanks to Pinterest. It's also not surprising that Pinterest actually outrates the social networks, Google and Amazon, as a place where people come to discover inspiration. And this one I actually found particularly interesting, that a vast majority of people who use Pinterest actually then go offline and make purchases based on what they're doing on Pinterest. So you actually have, as a creator, this is a really big opportunity. People are looking for the fashion ideas or the decor ideas, they're curating it for themselves, and then they're going and taking action on that. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about who's using Pinterest, let's talk about how you can reach those people. So I'll give you a few numbers that illustrate what is different about Pinterest. First off, the average life of a pin is about 3.5 months. This is something that I didn't understand at all when I was running my own business and trying to use Pinterest as a place to build an audience. I was approaching Pinterest from the mindset of a social network where I expected that when I posted something on Pinterest, I would get some sort of feedback loop within minutes, or like maybe hours, or like worst case days. But like I sat there and I wasn't getting a lot of feedback. But then what you see like really frequently on Pinterest is people will come to Pinterest, they'll try this, they won't get a lot of feedback within the first couple days, and they'll think, oh, this isn't working, and they'll abandon. And then they'll go to their Google Analytics 3 months later, and they're like, whoa, I'm getting all of this site traffic from Pinterest. And that's because of the way that Pinterest works. So the pin will build momentum over time, and that'll continue to increase over the course of several months. And actually, we often see that some of the best performing pins will actually continue to have a life of their own for several years. So it's far more evergreen than what you find in other places. The other thing that's worth calling out here is that there are about 2 billion searches on Pinterest every month. So in this way, Pinterest, this is that like active use case, people like actively looking for something on Pinterest. And in this way, Pinterest is actually far more like a search engine than it is like a social network. And so when you're a creator on Pinterest, this is an important thing to keep in mind, is you're not going to be as successful as you come to Pinterest and you are posting your content with that personal, kind of social perspective. What you want to do is optimize for it as if you're optimizing for a search engine. Be very descriptive, help people understand what they're going to get out of it, out of your pin, out of the content that's behind that pin. And then the last thing that I'll highlight here is that about 75% of the content on Pinterest is from a business or a blog. And so this is also different because you're not, as a blogger or a small business, you're not competing for people's attention with pictures of Susie's mom's cat, right? People are coming to Pinterest specifically to find content from bloggers, from businesses. They have that mindset, so you don't have to, sometimes I think on social networks, as a blogger or a brand, you really have to like overcompensate to feel like you're fitting in, and that's not required on Pinterest. Okay, so we can have some time for questions at the end. Is that cool? Yeah. Great. Okay, so when you actually take a piece of content and you put it into Pinterest, what happens to it? First thing that happens is it gets shown to the people who follow you. This is like any other social network. It gets shown in this place that we call the following tab. And the way that Pinterest works is based on how much engagement that pin gets from your followers, that's where we understand not only how much people like that pin and decide where else to show it, but we learn about what people like about that pin. So you could imagine that if you have a blog post or you share a pin, it's a picture of a living room, but everyone, like a beautifully decorated living room, and everyone's saving that to boards that are called coffee table. Well, actually, the right place to show that pin is to people who are like really interested in buying a new coffee table. And so we start to learn about that pin based on how your followers are interacting with it. What's interesting here is that once your followers start interacting with it, that's when it starts to get sent out. Your pin starts to get pushed out into all of the other places that people are discovering content on Pinterest, like the home feed and search. So actually, your reach ends up being far higher than your follower account on general. And this is generally relatively misunderstood. So followers on Pinterest are more like the floor of who you reach than they are a ceiling of who you reach. So we pretty often talk to people who actually just having a conversation with somebody over here who is saying that their reach is far greater than their number of followers. This is generally true on Pinterest. We see people reaching 10 to 100x the number of people than they have followers. Once people have started interacting with it and it starts to get shown in other places, the first place it'll get shown is on somebody's home feed. This is like the primary place that people go on Pinterest to interact with content. This is the place where you see that activity that I was talking about, where people are really connecting with themselves, thinking about their own passions. People will spend literally hours in here looking through content, clicking through, starting to plan their lives and the things that they want to do. And then the other place that your content will start to show up is in search. And this is those 2 billion searchers every month who are looking for a piece of content. Often, in this example, it's a recipe. And what we'll learn based on the interactions that we're getting from your followers, and then as we start to show it in home feed, in search results, is that pin will start to get shown more and more the more it gets interacted with. Okay, great. So that's how content gets distributed on Pinterest. Let's talk about a few best practices. These are some things that you can do that you should just do. If you're not doing it today, start doing it on Pinterest because this will make you more successful on Pinterest. These are some things that I didn't necessarily understand before I joined Pinterest. So first off, get a business account, claim your website, and publish content at least once a week. We'll talk about each of these a little bit more. So, business accounts are different on Pinterest, just like a lot of things. And the reason that we separate a business account from a pinner account is because, if you remember when we were talking about pinners are using Pinterest in a somewhat private way. So when I'm discovering a marmalade recipe and I save it to one of my boards, that's something for me to come back to later. It's not something that I intend for a lot of other people to see, right? I'm not saving that marmalade recipe because I want to broadcast that to a whole lot of people. But when you're a creator or a small business and you want to be discovered, we need a signal that says, okay, when you publish content, we actually should be showing it to more people. You want this content to be discovered. And so moving to a business account helps us understand that. So this is something that you can do right away that if you haven't done it already will have a big impact on our ability to be helpful to you. A couple things come with that. We have your profile will look different so that pinners know that you're somebody who wants to be discovered and who's creating content. You can see an image of this at the right. Actually, something that's worth calling out here is you can see for Bright & Co. here, they have about 70K followers, and you can see that in the upper right, and then right in the middle of the screen, you can see that they're getting about 7 million monthly viewers. So this illustrates that point I was making earlier about their reach being far higher than the number of followers they have. We'll also give you analytics, which you don't get with a pinner account, so that you can understand, here are the things, here are the pins that are working for me, here are the pins that aren't. You can optimize for that. We'll also help you grow your following, so that you can find new people, put your account in front of new people who may be looking for your type of content. The other thing to do right away, if you haven't, is to claim your website. This helps us to give you attribution for your content. Pinterest, again, is unique in this way because pins can come into Pinterest from a number of places. They don't just come into Pinterest from the creators themselves. So somebody can be out browsing the web, come across your blog, pin an image from your blog into Pinterest, and we at that point, unless you've claimed your website, we have no idea that's yours. And so we can't give you attribution for that content. We can't, if that content starts going viral, we can't help you, gain a following for that content, gain a reputation for that content, and get credit for that content. So that's the primary reason to go out and claim your website. We can also give you better analytics. We can show you information specifically about your domain. And we actually launched this new feature recently called Pin Stats, where we can give you analytics right on the pin that are like more in-depth analytics. They're closer to real time. They'll help you get be more methodical with the way that you're creating content on Pinterest. And then the last thing to call out is publish at least weekly. This is similar to what you'll hear from other places on the web, other networks. Your followers are going to start to interact with people that they learn to trust, that they get used to seeing content from. And so the more that you're creating content, the more that your followers are going to learn that you are a source of great content. They're going to come back regularly to look for that content. And you're going to be able to, your content's going to start to perform better. Okay, video on Pinterest. So video is relatively new to Pinterest. And as we all know here at Vidcon, video is a big opportunity. It's a great way to tell a story. If you are a pinner and you're looking to do something, like looking to make marmalade, I actually looked really hard on Pinterest for a video on how to make marmalade. There isn't one, so if anybody in this room has a great marmalade recipe, please create that video. I'd love to save it. I was talking to a publisher recently who was telling me that they've been creating pins on Pinterest for about 7 years. They're a top performing publisher. They get a ton of traffic from Pinterest. And they recently started creating video pins on Pinterest just in the last couple months. And already their top 3 performing pins ever are 3 video pins. And so that shows you that there's videos can be super, super powerful on Pinterest. People are really hungry for this type of content. The best videos on Pinterest are just like the best pins. They help people discover and do what they love. They're often in our primary verticals, things like food, fashion, beauty, DIY, and home. And they help people go offline and try something. So what you can see here is we actually have a feature where people can come back online and upload photos or comments about the things that they've tried because of Pinterest. My personal favorite is this try, where somebody actually created a salmon puff recipe shaped like a salmon. I think this is kind of amazing, and it shows some of the creativity that comes out of your audience on Pinterest. Short form videos are going to work particularly well. So some of the same things that you'll hear in other places. Build for mobile, 70% of Pinterest users are on mobile. And assume that the sound is off, at least at first, for the first few seconds. Some other things about video on Pinterest. The content is uploaded directly by a native video player. They'll autoplay, videos will autoplay in the feed, and you can upload videos that are anywhere from 4 seconds to about 30 minutes. We recommend keeping that under 3 minutes, and in fact, my recommendation is keep it even shorter than that. Keep it under a minute or even under 30 seconds is probably going to be your sweet spot. Pinterest started with promoted videos because we could ensure that the quality was going to stay really high. But we've been letting people into this experience over the course of the last several months. And so we thought it would be pretty lame for me to come up here and talk about video on Pinterest if you guys couldn't use video on Pinterest. So take a picture of that URL and go sign up so that you can start using video on Pinterest. Please don't share this URL. This is specifically for people in this room. I will be taking it down later today. I would love to see the content that you guys are all creating, the video content. Get it into Pinterest. Let me know how it's going. Create a marmalade recipe for me, please. And it'll start to show up in browse, search, and related pins. Okay, little sneak peek of some other video things that are coming up. First off, we will be launching better analytics soon for video. So these will be similar to Pin Stats. For those of you who have looked at your pin stats, it will have kind of quick, snackable analytics on the actual pin itself, and you'll be able to click in and get deeper information about where your pins are being saved, what sort of people are interacting with your pins, why. We're also launching a max width promoted video. So this is a double wide video in the home feed. That's launching on August 1st. And finally, we will be, this is the most requested feature from people who have access to the video tools today, will be autoplaying next video for those of you who have uploaded a lot of video content. So there's a lot to come on Pinterest when it comes to video. But these are some of the things that I wanted to show off. And now let's open it up to questions. It sounds like we have one up here. And have a little discussion. The other thing I want to do, actually, just before we go to questions, I want to introduce somebody. So Jen Chan is on our product team. She is the mastermind behind a lot of the video content on Pinterest and how these products work. And so I want to invite her up here as well to help answer any questions. She will know all of the details. So there's a mic in the middle of the room. If you want to come up and ask, feel free.